How are you?
I'm good. Excuse me while I adjust my while I
Take your time.
adjust.
You look beautiful. I love the backdrop behind you. That is
Oh,
stunning.
thanks. It's literally right next to my bed. These are just my stacks of books that I'm always reading. I'm like, where's the tiniest little corner that looks aesthetically pleasing? So,
Well, it looks amazing, and so do you. We were just saying
oh,
how,
thank you.
just telling everybody's in there, they're putting in. It's Miss Universe night, so people are putting in, their favorites. And you have so many people that are joining us. There's hearts flying all over the place. Everybody's excited to
Oh,
talk, to hear you, speak tonight. I'm excited too. I told Kennedy I am super excited to talk to you because I mean you're just the word for you, and it is your word is resilient. And I'm just so
oh,
excited to talk to
thank
you,
you.
Carissa.
I'm I was gonna say it's heavy, and people use that word a lot. People use and they talk about trends in pageantry, kind of on paperwork as far as authentic, right? Like authentic and resilient and all these different things. And I'm like, oh no, like I've been through some stuff.
You
And
have definitely been through some stuff.
I have, and I know I'm not alone. You know what I mean? I know that that's not a unique story. And one thing I've learned is that if you sit down with anybody for long enough and ask them about their story, then 9 out of 10 times you're like, wait, what? You know what I mean? You're blown away. So, um, and I find that so interesting because going through trauma and a lot of trauma and compounded trauma where it just, one thing after the other, after another, it's notorious for making people feel really, really isolated, which increases, depression, anxiety, and a lot of stuff. But what's amazing is that when you sit down and talk to another human being for long enough, you're like, oh, so we're all like we've all got stuff. We've all had things.
We've all
Yeah.
had stuff. That is so
Yeah.
true. And I think the perception is that even though we've had stuff, people say, oh, but she looks. You hear that
Oh,
word like, oh, she looks.
yeah. Yeah, I have some beef. I have some major beef. I do, and I've talked about it since for about 10, 11 years, 10 years ish when I first came forward publicly, and that was kind of when blogs were really, really big, 2015-ish. And I finally came forward and told my story at the time about experiencing postpartum depression and anxiety. And yes, and that was one of the main things was that I had attempted to tell my OB at my, 6 week, 2 week checkup, 6 week checkup. Um, and then even my regular doctor, I had tried to tell them, look, I understand that, that I look well put together. You know what I mean? And I always made sure I did. Like I always made sure, that I, had everything, very visually put together. And just looking how I do and just like being very slender and just and always liking fashion and wanting to dress nicely and things like that. Um, I mean, I had doctors where I would sit there and I would tell them how bad I was feeling, and they would literally follow it up with, well, you look fantastic. Like, well, you look great. And that's a problem. That's a big problem. Or at my 12-week postpartum checkup, I remember they were like, well, you're back to your pre-baby weight. And I remember I said, it is because my anxiety is so bad, I can't eat. You know what I mean? Like, I have no appetite. I can't eat. I do not feel like myself. I mean, I was trying to describe how bad I was feeling, and they literally said, "Well, you look amazing. You look fantastic."
Sometimes I wish that we could just like morph and open up
Yeah, yeah.
ourselves.
I'm like, can I just like,
Okay, can I
just
show
like,
you my heartbreak and how internally I'm a mess. You know, like
Hmm.
sometimes you just, when you hear those things or when people see photos or whatever, it's like you just don't know what people go through.
No, no, and and I did not compete in pageantry for 12 years, and I never thought, I didn't think would ever again. From the time I got married, because I was always a Miss USA girl. I was a diehard. I want to be Miss Teen USA. I want to be Miss USA. And so obviously the old rules were still in effect. And I made the choice at 22 to stop competing. I was engaged. I got married. I very much wanted a family. I wanted children. And I knew that my husband and I, fiance at the time, we were going to have infertility issues. So, no, thanks, Shantana. I knew we were going to have issues, and I had already lost one baby, and ended up losing another. But I made that very difficult choice. Did not compete for 12 years. Didn't think I ever would ever again. And so it was really incredible to come back after 12 years. And like you said, it was like, I wish I could just rip myself open inside. Because the first pageant I competed in was in a Mrs. system, you know, it was for a Mrs. title, and I won. And I remember, you know, you unfortunately, social media, and I've dealt with my fair share of, you know, some hateful comments, negative comments. And I got quite a few that were along the lines of, you know, you can't just win because you're the skinniest woman on the stage. And my dad had passed away 6 months before I competed. And I was still breastfeeding my youngest until about 3 months before I competed. And I've always been super slender, you know, and so there was like nothing left of me. You know what I mean? It's just like I was full of grief. I mean, I was doing my best, you know, I was doing my best, and I had signed up for the pageant before my dad passed away. So it was like, I'm going to do this, you know, I'm going to see it through. I'm going to do, you know, whatever. And I ended up winning. And so like that. So when I would get comments like that, and always have my whole life, it's like that. I'm still that way. I feel this like inner urge to just kind of word vomit. Like, no, you don't understand, you know, like, there's you know there's so much that people don't see, because especially competing, you know, in the industry and modeling professionally and doing all those things, uh obviously it's very easy to look at somebody from the outside and sit and say, oh well, looks great, everything looks perfect, and I'm like, no, I'm a mess. Like,
Well, personally, I have looked at you from the inside out, just seeing
thank you.
your journey and everything that you have endured. And just when I remember when you posted that you were selected as Miss
That was
Washington
such a raw
USA.
video.
So
That
I
was,
mean, you have to take us back there, because in case people don't know the story here, we had 8 states that did not
yes.
have a title holder. So it's like, and it's only a few weeks, tick 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 tick, till it's time
I was,
to
when
Miss
I tell you,
USA.
when I tell you my nerves had already been shot for months, because it was getting closer and closer and closer. And I had continually stayed in contact with my past state directors. I had gotten first runner up last year at Washington USA. And so then it was the whole right. And I've got all my sister queens, and I'm friends with other state title holders that were current at the time, you know, now former. And everybody's sitting there, you know, being like, are they going to appoint first runner ups? You know, are they going to appoint first runner ups? What's going to happen? Are we going to hold a pageant? Do I need to be ready? I lost my mom in February. And even though I had lost my mom, my husband looked at me and he's like, I know you. And if you did not give it a go, you know what I mean? And if you didn't give it a go, I had made peace with the fact that I was not going to compete again after this year. Like, I mean, I had fully committed to saying, if this is not the year, then I've made peace with my 21-year span of competing. And I'm okay. Carissa is still Carissa, whether I have a crown or a sash. Everything about me is still exactly the same. So I had definitely made peace with that, but my husband still was like, I know you and you're gonna apply. And and he said, because it will kill you. It will kill you to see, maybe somebody else appointed that's not from your state. You've worked so hard, you've done it for so long. Being appointed to my state that I reside in, Washington State, meant so much to me, because my husband and I do a lot of community work here. So uh, and I'm not sure if a lot of people know that we were not allowed to pick our state.
Oh.
So I could say yes, I absolutely, I want to represent Washington State, but we did not get to pick our state. And so I really doubled down, on my application and the things that we were required to submit. I really doubled down. I wanted the judges to see my video, that I submitted. I wanted them to read my biography, and I wanted them to have the conversation amongst themselves where it was, there is nobody else for Washington State except for Carissa. Like, that is it. And I wanted there to be no question that I was it for Washington State. So when I got the call in that video and I had called my husband, I literally pulled over on the side of the freeway. And it was very serendipitous. I was on my way home from a 12-hour drive from Southern Oregon, and I was dealing with some of my mom's kind of final affairs. I was driving home to Washington State when I got the call, and I was still about 3 hours away from home when I got the call from Laura Clark, one of the new co-directors. And as you know, everything happened so fast. Announcements were coming out like every day, just constantly. And I got the call from her, and I tried to hold it together during the call. And the second I hung up, I literally pulled over on the side of the freeway, and I did not know that my husband screen recorded that. And I mean, I've got like busted off nails, and I'm, no makeup on, and I am sobbing. If anyone has seen that video, I'm hysterically sobbing, and it's 100%. It's the culmination of that resilience that you talked about. It was like, I did not give up on this dream. That was a dream from the time I was 5 years old. And it was a dream that I had because I felt very hopeless in my childhood. And a young woman from my very small hometown had won Miss Teen USA. And I remember thinking, if somebody from my tiny little town can do it, maybe I can have a better life for myself one day. And I really, really clung to that hope, and that's what clicked in my head for me about pageantry. So it really was the culmination of, I have lost my mom, I lost my dad in 2020. Both of my parents died from end-stage liver failure due to their alcoholism. So, I mean, I grew up in an alcoholic household, a lot of trauma, a lot of abuse. And so, yeah, so I mean, I got some comments on that video too that are like, oh my gosh, really? Crying that much all over a beauty pageant. And it's, and I'm like, absolutely, yes. You know what I mean? It is because it's so much more. It's so much more than a beauty pageant, right? I mean, that was the culmination of all of my hard work and all of my resilience, and that grit. Like I will say, I have a grit inside me that refuses to give up. I refuse to give up. So.
Absolutely. And yeah, and let me tell you, you are a style queen. And I'm okay. I know I can't get in it, but I would force myself to squeeze in the red dress with the jacket.
Oh,
Uh-huh.
oh,
Uh-huh.
girl. Oh, I have I haven't got to talk. I haven't got you're the first person I've talked to podcast wise since Miss USA. I literally bought, well, guess what? It's stretchy. and it cost me $9.99 at H&M. So there you go.
Stop.
Yeah, yes. And my red trench coat I bought, I think 2 or 3 years ago from Express as they were going out of business. They were going and it was inspired by, if anyone is a Love Actually fan, the movie, it's the Christmas movie Love Actually. I loved, there's a red wool coat in there, and I saw it one time at Express and it was next to nothing. And then I picked up that pair of heels on clearance like the day before I left to go to Miss USA. And I thought, I'm going to do a red monochromatic look. And that little dress was from H&M for $9.99.
And you know what?
So,
That's the biggest question that I think everybody has had is okay, you're Miss Washington USA, and in
yeah,
less than what, couple weeks, you have
two
to
and a
get.
half weeks.
So how did you manage to get everything together in 2.5? Because your wardrobe was stunning. So I was like, how in the world?
Okay, what's crazy is that people kept asking me, friends, while I was preparing, they're like, okay, do you have your wardrobe on lockdown? God's to honest truth, wardrobe was the very last thing that I even it was the last thing on my list. It was the last thing on my list. Um, they they require so much from you, just like logistically. I mean, if you've ever done pageants, as far as paperwork, I mean, literally paperwork, disclosures. With Miss USA, it was something I've never experienced before. There was a lot of paperwork as far as what you need to provide to the production crew for, hey, what are we reading while you're on stage? And everything has word limits. So you're like, you're really fine tuning and you're honing. And again, if you know pageantry, the way that you kind of really steer and direct this image of yourself that you want to portray and that's most important to you and your story, those things that you provide are really the roadmap to who they see you as, the judges, what they're hearing when they're on stage and all those things. So those things really were like priority number one. And two of them were professional level videos that were required. So one of them was your introduction video that the judges were going to see right before you walked in the room for interview.
Wow.
So it was like, this is who I am, this is my story, this is what I'm about. And you want it to be so impactful, right? You want it to be so impactful. And and I knew, being the 38-year-old old, mature contestant at Miss USA, I knew, okay, I'm Washington, I'm W. They're going right as far as order. I knew I'm going to be in the very last group of people that they are going to interview. So this is how my brain works, and I have raging ADHD. But I'm like, they're going to have heard how many stories before mine? A lot. So that video was incredibly important. Like it needs to catch their attention. So focusing on the video, which needs to be basically like cinematic quality, focusing on your introduction video, and then we were required to do what they called a behind the crown video, which is kind of more so about your community impact and the things that you focus on and stuff like that. And those things, along with the paperwork and forms and all of that, took up, I would say, like 98% of my time in those 2.5 weeks. So wardrobe, I would say, was my biggest kind of bummer, being like the fashion lover that I am. I love fashion. I love style. I really like to do things differently, which I think people have kind of picked up on about me. I like to do things a little bit outside of the box. And so I was just really bummed that, obviously, if I would have had the time, I would have made some. I really wish I could almost be like, can I do a do-over, where I have more than 2.5 weeks? But it's Miss USA. I'm not saying no to Miss USA on my deathbed. So I was like, I'll be there. I'll figure it out. It's that, I mean, it really is that resilient, like, persistent. Nope, I'll figure it out. So my wardrobe, I really did throw together last.
Well, if you threw that together, then okay, because
Well, I was
I'll
like,
let you come here and throw some stuff together for me then, if that's the case, because you did a great job. You looked amazing. I was like, there's
thank
no
you.
time to do it. So,
Yeah, thank you so much. I think I was there, of course, and the social media really, it really does. It blows up while you're there. You barely have time to even look at your phone, let alone respond or post. um all at the same time. They're like, document everything, post as much as you can, and you're like, I can't even breathe or stop for a second or take a drink of water or like whatever. um but but yeah, like, I, of course, there's the pageant bloggers who honestly show so much love to all of us contestants. And and I happened to notice someone's like, oh, Krista, you made whoever's best dressed list. And I, like, I mean, I was laughing to myself on the inside. I was like, you know um because I really did. I really was just like throwing stuff into my suitcase. I mean, up until about 20 minutes before I left my house. So
so let me ask you, I mean, you got to remember, this is like a huge 21-year dream that came true. What was your aha moment when you were at Miss USA, where you went, I'm at Miss USA. I'm living my dream here.
yes, my aha moment was honestly probably about 30 seconds before I stepped on stage for evening gown on preliminary night. Um, because it is a very surreal experience. It's the most accurate word I can think of. To have built something up in your head for your entire life, right? To have watched it on TV since I was 5 years old, and to now be a 38-year-old married wife and mother of three. So you have to reconcile this dream and this idea in your head with then actually being there, and the reality of being there, and you're just going through the motions, and everything's so busy and it's rushing by so fast that it doesn't feel real at all. um I remember feeling like I don't quite feel like myself, or like this is very kind of surreal. And it was the first time I've ever had any wardrobe malfunctions, kind of, in my 21 year span of competing. And I had to be sewn into the gown I wore, was my backup gown that I wore at Miss Washington USA last year. And I had to wear that as my backup gown because a custom gown that came to the resort while I was there, it did not fit me perfectly. I was like, I can't wear this. It doesn't fit exact. When I knew the other one fit me like a glove. And so I'm like, okay, I have to wear my backup gown. So you have to wrap your head around that. You really have to change your perspective. Okay, it's not exactly what I wanted it to be. Um, I definitely said a prayer to my parents, my mom specifically, literally standing like on the stairs right behind the big like LED screen before anyone can see you. I really just took to heart a couple prayers that some pageant girlfriends had sent me backstage. And and it was that, like, every step that I was going to take, that my mom was going to be walking right there beside me, um every step of that way. And it really was right before I stepped on stage. I took a deep breath, and I really did. It was like I felt all of this tension leave my body, and I felt very relaxed and very calm. And I really did just feel as if my mom was walking right next to me, step by step. in that preliminary gown. And that was when it was like, oh, I'm doing this. I'm doing this, and I've dreamt of it my whole life. And my parents might not be here, in body, but 100% I felt my mom's presence come over me, and I thought we made it. We made it after all this time. That was the moment for me, for sure.
And I love that. And you like you said, you had your mom right there. And in that moment, it had nothing to do with the pageant. It had everything to do with the journey it took you to get to that moment. That's what it's about.
Yes, that's so true. It had nothing to do with the pageant or being in my head about like my performance or, my walk or, don't move your arms like that, because you get, it's a head game. It's a mental game. But in that moment, all of that completely went out of my head, and it really was just like, I am incredibly present in this moment, and nothing can take that away from me in the entire world. Nothing and no one, can take that from me. So yeah.
So, what's a good message you can give to any woman? There may be somebody listening right now who's like, it's always wanted to be or compete at Miss USA or have a dream that they just thought wasn't possible because
Hmm.
they're mom or I'm a wife and
Hmm.
all these different stereotypes that people like to put on women.
Hmm.
So what advice can you give them to just step out on faith and really just go for it?
Oh my gosh, I would say what I asked my dad, and his final piece of advice he gave me before he passed away, and he was a Marine, and he never seemed scared of literally anything. And I always felt like I moved through life being very scared. I did. I've always struggled with anxiety and things like that. Wanting to try new things, wanting to be an actress, wanting to do so many different things. Um, but how many times fear stopped me from doing those things. One of the last things I asked my dad was, have you ever been scared? Were you ever scared in the military? My dad did special forces, like reconnaissance, and so he did only special missions. And it was the first time in my life that he said, yes, absolutely, I was scared. And he said, but I want to tell you that there will be times when you are scared and that it won't go away and it's going to be there. And I want you to do it scared anyways. And um, grief and losing parents or people we love or things like that, his passing put things in such a different perspective for me. I thought to myself, there are so many things that I want to do that I have stopped myself from doing because I was too scared. So I made up all these excuses. I'm not experienced enough. I'm too old. I'm a wife. I'm a mother. There's not enough time, there's not enough time for me. I need to do all these other things. I made the I and those are valid things. Those are all true, right? Those are all true. I am a mother. I am a wife. I am a partner. I am all those things. And I struggle with anxiety. I mean, and I have a, generalized anxiety disorder and used to have horrible panic attacks, that were debilitating. Um, but I really did in 2020 in that moment, I thought to myself, even if I am having a panic attack, I am going to do it anyways. If I would have not followed that advice from my dad in 2020, I would have never won the Mrs. title that I won at the end of 2020. I would have probably never gotten through hours upon hours and days of being in the hospital with my daughter shortly afterwards, when she got sick and was diagnosed with a kidney disease. I would not have competed at Miss Washington USA 2024 as a wife and mother. I definitely would not have submitted this year for the at-large titles, and I almost did not. I very very closely did not. But if I would not have pushed through that fear, as uncomfortable as it was, then I would not have competed at Miss USA. I would not be sitting here with you today. I would not have Miss Washington USA across my chest. But more than that, I would not have grown and experienced life and have come to know myself as the strong, resilient woman that I am today. I would not have came to know the woman that Carisa is today, sitting here in front of you, if I wouldn't have pushed through that fear. So I would say, even if you're scared, do it scared anyways.
I love that advice. Just do it. Do it scared. And you do have so much going on and you're busy and everything gets hectic for you. So when you do feel overwhelmed, what do you do when you have those moments? Because we all have them.
Yeah, and I will admit, I feel overwhelmed on a very regular basis. Like I said, I am diagnosed with ADHD, and one of the biggest things I struggle with that is this feeling of overwhelm, of it's too much. And people will be like, well, what's too much? And you're like, I don't know, everything, right? Like just everything. It's too much. Obviously, I have a background in psychology, thanks to wanting to learn more about these kinds of things, but knowledge is power 100%. So literally learning actual physical things that you can do to, number one, calm your nervous system in the first place so you can think more clearly. And once you can think clearly, then you can actually plan. Then, I utilize these things on a daily basis. So literally grounding yourself, calming your nervous system to the point that you are able to function, and then do things like make an actual list. I'm a list maker, but to make an actual list and then take it literally one step at a time. Because life is incredibly overwhelming. And one other thing that's completely kind of not about making a list or doing those other things is that every once in a while, my doctor and my psychologist give me the wonderful reminder of, if you happen to be a mother, is to stop and literally go find your children or your child, wherever they're at in your house, and I will stop, even if it's for 5 minutes, and I will go and find them, and I will hug them, hold them, squeeze them, talk to them, ask them about their day. It's a very, very grounding and centering thing that you can do if you are a mom, and because it really brings you back to what's most important to you, and to really resting in that love and safe space. As long as you can speak in a safe space with safe people, you're going to feel safe in your body, and that's going to calm your nervous system to the point where you can actually start to take those steps that you need to take to do the things that you want to do.
And I love that. I love that advice. That's great advice. And your kids keep you grounded. And even if you don't, have kids, find something that keeps you, centered and grounded. It's
I
so
was gonna say,
important.
literally even a pet. A pet. My 8-year-old son looked at my husband, at his dad the other day, who has a very high stress, very demanding job. As he's an indigenous leader, and our 8-year-old looked at him and said, Dad, maybe you should take off your shoes and go stand outside in the grass for a couple minutes. And I've talked about that just kind of like in passing and different grounding techniques and stuff like that, but never thinking that he was like hearing or like paying it really like kind of paying attention. But he 8 years old and he looked at his dad who's 38 and said, maybe you should take off your shoes and go stand outside for a few minutes. And it really stopped my husband in his tracks. Because it was such like a profound thing for an 8-year-old to say. It's like, whoa. So literally, even if you have nothing at all, you can take off your shoes and you can seriously walk outside your front door and touch some earth, literally touch some earth, touch some grass, and breathe some fresh air. I learned that it takes only 3 slow, deep, mindful breaths to actually bring your nervous system back to center. So you can literally take 3 slow breaths of inhale for 4 seconds, hold out, exhale for 4 seconds, hold, and you do that 3 times in a row, and it can bring your nervous system back to center. So if you are mindful enough to kind of catch yourself in those moments, there are so many tools, but those are a couple that work, and they do work. So,
And I definitely will be utilizing those tools. Definitely. So let me ask you this, Carissa. You've been, oh my God, pageantry 21 plus years. You've been in this industry, a long time. And now is day and age, it's all about blogs, just like us. We're a huge
yeah.
pageant resource. There's tons of blogs out there. So just from your perspective, what more do you want to see from us or even other pageant blogs that are out there?
Yeah, not to use that little hot button, word that people like to use is, I would love to hear queens, both former, past, present, but just in general. I would love to hear more authentic conversation. We do talk a lot about mental health, and it's become something that's become less taboo to talk about even in the pageantry industry. But I will say, just from my experience at Miss USA, we have a group chat. We have like a 2025 class of 2025 group chat, and something that I have noticed amongst most of us is that we have all discussed like the very real, raw, vulnerable feelings and emotions that you cycle through, whether it's during prep for a pageant, whether it is your real life, right? Things that you are dealing with in your day-to-day life. And I would say self-care after post-pageant has to be one of the most important things that I've always talked about, and that I've slowly had to learn. This is what my process looks like, or this is what works best for me, and to kind of find that routine for myself over the years. But I think it's something that needs to be talked about in a really raw and honest and vulnerable way, regardless of what we look like on the outside. Because if you sit down with pageant queens, you might find that some of them, a lot of them say, I'm feeling very low. You know what I mean? Like, I'm feeling very low after a pageant. I'm feeling very kind of depressed after a pageant. So I think just having those really open, honest, and raw conversations is something that needs to happen. I think of women like Chesley Christ, obviously. I think of her, and I had followed her whole journey and things like that. And she tried to speak about those things. I've seen a lot of past interviews with her where she tried to talk about the pressures that are placed on women to succeed, to build up accolades, and to do all those kinds of things. And so I think having really raw, honest conversations about the actual impact that it has on you as a human being, and what that might look like, regardless of what it looks like on the outside. I think that that's what I would like to see more of.
And I think that's very important. So we need to continue to, I always say unpeel those layers
Oh yeah,
and get to the core. And I do absolutely agree with you 100% on that.
yeah, yeah. I definitely agree. And if I was to, yeah, if I was to ever, do anything like that, or even just like speaking with you now like that, I'm like, that's something that I talk about. And even when I reach out to friends who may have just competed, I always reach out, and the first thing I ever do is let them know, like, hey, this is a safe space. Give yourself as much grace as possible. Give yourself as much time as possible, whether that's 2 weeks, 2 months. I know plenty of queens that are really not ready to kind of even dive back into that arena for 9 to 12 months. I mean, literally sometimes, even about a year, because when it's something that you care about and you're that passionate about, or maybe you had a hard loss, maybe it was something difficult, maybe you didn't have a great experience or whatever. But one of the first things I do is just letting them know that there is a safe space in me, and that it doesn't go any further, than our conversations that we have together. But just to remind themselves to, everybody else can wait. You know what I mean? Everything else can wait. You taking care of you is 100% is the number one priority. So
Yes, it is. And
yeah.
God, I feel like time flies when you're having fun.
It
But
does.
before I let you go,
Okay.
here at Beauty Queens Galore, we like to play a little game called
Oh
This
gosh.
or
Okay.
That. And I am the one that will let you have one where it can be both. Okay?
Okay.
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 I'm ready.
Studio shoot or outdoor editorial?
Outdoor editorial.
I had a feeling you would say that. Rehearsal days or competition night?
Competition night. I love
Ooh.
I love the stage.
Power blazer looks or floor length gowns?
Floor length gown for me.
Sticking to routine or going with instinct?
Going with instinct, 100%.
Creative writing or filming content?
Creative writing.
Okay.
I'm a writer, so
That's right. Sneakers or stilettos?
both. That's my both. That's my both.
I'll
Girl,
let you
I'm a
have it.
I'm a I'm a sneaker. I'm both a sneaker and a heel collector.
I'll let you have both on that one.
Okay.
Ooh, phone call or text?
Phone call.
Agreed. Dress or jumpsuit?
Jumpsuit?
Okay. Early
Maybe?
bird or night owl?
Night owl.
Okay. You're so busy, but Netflix or Hulu?
Hulu.
Okay. Last one. Crown or sash?
Crown.
There you go. Well, Carissa, let me
That's
tell you,
fun.
you did a great job. You got your one in there where I let you have both.
Oh,
And
there's no choosing. I'm not sure I could choose. I really do. I have a shoe problem. Have you ever seen that meme that says like my personality summed up in one picture, and it's the same girl, and she's wearing one stiletto, and then she's wearing like a Nike low dunk or something.
that's you.
That's me. That's me. That's me.
Well, I mean, like I said, you can have both there. But I'm just gonna say, I've thoroughly enjoyed talking to you. I could talk more with you,
Thank you.
so that
Oh,
maybe that's an
same.
excuse to come back because, like I
Yes.
said, you're just an extraordinary woman, and
Thank you
you
so
truly
much.
are rooted in resilience. That is for sure. But before you go, tell people how they can stay connected to you and follow you on your journey as Miss
Of
Washington
course.
USA.
Yes, yeah, of course. You can absolutely follow me on my Instagram, which is official Carisa Erickson. You can also follow me on my TikTok, which is also the same, official Carisa Erickson. Those are the two main that you can follow me on right now. Um, People keep nudging me for a YouTube channel, but we'll see. We'll see. But right now, those are the two. My Instagram and my TikTok. I'm pretty active on both. Very active on Instagram. I do a lot of TikTok lives. I don't really do Instagram lives so much, but I do quite a bit of TikTok lives, and people seem to really enjoy those. As you can probably tell, quite a bit of an open book. So I really love just connecting with others. So I love the chance and the ability to connect with my audience and just friends and make new friends and make new connections. And so and my DMs are always open on both, and I always make sure I let people know that, because I am a certified crisis counselor as well. And so I volunteer my time at the National Crisis Text Line. And so I just always make sure I let people know my DMs are always open. So
So you guys
feel
heard
free
it
to message
here.
me.
She is
Yeah.
not hard to find.
I'm
Okay.
not hard to find. And I'm hard to miss. I feel like I'm like, and then it's like, oh, like the one with the short blonde hair and tattoos that are, covering her. Yeah. So I feel like I'm pretty easy to find. I feel like I'm pretty easy to find.
You are, and like I said, you are so extraordinary, and I appreciate you sharing your journey and giving such great advice to anyone. So anybody out there listening, just do it
Thank you.
scared. Do it scared. Just
Do
don't
it scared.
stop.
I tell my daughter it often. I mean, it's just become this thing that we've talked about, because what it really ends up teaching everybody, and that I say to her all the time, is what it ends up teaching you is you can do hard things. Like
Absolutely.
you might be terrified. And I literally have told her, hey, your dad had to basically push me out the hotel room door to go walk that runway that I walked, because I felt like I was having a panic attack. But I'm so glad I did it. You know what I mean? But I'm so glad I did. So you are capable and you can do hard things. Sometimes you can't beat fear. Do it scared anyways.
That's right. Well, thank you again
You're
so
so
much.
welcome.
Like I said, we got to have you back because there's just so much more we can talk about. But until
Have me
then,
back.
everybody knows how to find you until then,
Yeah.
and I definitely will continue following your journey. And thank you again.
Thank you so much for having
Congratulations.
me.
You're
Thank you
so
so
welcome.
much. Oh, all right. I'll talk to you soon.
Bye, Carissa.
Bye. Thank you.
Thank you.